We've been a leader in banking for more than 100 years. You'll find us here, at home, on your phone, and everywhere you go. Renaissance Bank. Understanding you. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
Sponsored by Renaissance Bank.
Good morning and welcome to Daily Journal Newsbreak, sponsored by Renaissance Bank. Today is Wednesday, September 19th, and I'm your host, Elizabeth Walters. We're going to take a look at today's top news and sports headlines across Northeast Mississippi, but first, a look at your weather forecast. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high of 97 and a low of 71. And over the next 3 days, on Thursday, we'll have mostly sunny skies with a high of 96 and a low of 72. On Friday, a 40% chance of afternoon showers and thunderstorms. That high will be around 92 with a low of 71. And on Saturday, scattered thunderstorms with a high of 89 and a low of 70. Now let's take a look at some of today's top headlines. About 9 months after agreeing to purchase the President's Gate apartment complex, the Tupelo City Council has approved a contract to demolish the structure. The council voted unanimously Tuesday night to give the contract to Century Construction for $314,000. The city has moved pretty quickly to empty out residents of the high-rise style apartment buildings, and as of July, approximately 17 units remain occupied, and the city notified all tenants that they need to move out by the end of this month. The city has not said whether or not tenants remain ahead of next week's deadline. This is the second complex the city has purchased as officials approved spending $2.15 million for Azalea Gardens in 2014. And while much of that original property has been demolished, some tenants still remain there about 4 years later. And correction officials in Vermont hope to finalize a deal to send 228 inmates to Mississippi after reports of abuse, poor medical service, and inmate deaths at a privately run prison. Vermont had two bidders to choose from: the Tallahatchie County Correction Facility in Tutwiler, as well as a facility in Rhode Island. And over the last 2 decades, Vermont has sent prisoners to facilities out of state to help with overcrowding, but the upcoming move has raised flags among advocates who oppose housing inmates outside of Vermont. Officials are hoping to approve a 2-year contract this week that would move the inmates to the state in October. And the U.S. Senate passed the Opioid Crisis Response Act of 2018 with overwhelming bipartisan support on Monday. The legislation includes measures to address the supply of illegal drugs, improve access to treatment, and foster long-term solutions. Local addiction recovery professionals were glad to see the legislation passed, saying it's a good starting point. Last year saw over 72,000 overdose deaths, and according to Dr. Stephen Pinnell of the Oxford Treatment Center, the fear is that it's going to continue to grow. Pinnell said that there are currently not enough resources to provide the treatment, and there's a lot of inconsistency in what ensures what to cover, and that goes against best practices. The final bill included the E-Treat Act, which Senator Roger Wicker was co-author and Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith was a co-sponsor. The legislation will be reconciled with a similar bill that passed the U.S. House of Representatives before it can be signed into law. And in sports, facing major injuries and disturbing early results ahead of a tough SEC schedule, Ole Miss is looking for answers on defense. Through the first 3 games of the season, the Rebels are ranked 126 out of 129 FBS teams in total defense and 124th in scoring defense. Senior safety C.J. Moore said miscommunication led to busted coverages in last week's loss to Alabama. Defensive coordinator Wesley McGriff said he's open to helping simplify things as the Rebels prepare to take on Kent State this weekend. McGriff also said that he's seen improvement, but not as quickly as he'd like. Kent State comes into this weekend's game averaging 395 yards with 193 on the ground. And that'll do it for Newsbreak on this Wednesday. Don't forget that this show is just one of the many online offerings courtesy of the Daily Journal that gets you news off the page and on the go. And be sure to look out for a new episode of the Prep Rally podcast. This week, host Brad Locke and Dalton Middleton look back at Week 5 high school football action, a look ahead to this week's games, and a profile of New Albany quarterback Loden Bolton. You can listen to Prep Rally on iTunes, your podcast app, or at preprally.djournal.com. And each story discussed today can be found in your Daily Journal or online at djournal.com, where you can find a new episode of Newsbreak each weekday morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Elizabeth Walters. Have a great day.